9-to-5 jobs? A thing of the past. Lifelong employment. What is that? That's how much our work life has changed over the last couple of years with the digital economy. And one study even estimates that it is changing 10 times faster with 3,000 times the impact of the first industrial revolution. So here is the lay of the land. Robots may eliminate more than 5 million jobs in 15 of the world's major economies. In Europe, 4 to 6 out of 10 jobs are expected to be automated, with the risk highest for Southern Europeans. 2 out of 5 employers in the G20 countries say they can't find qualified people for the jobs they have. And in Europe, that could mean 825,000 unfilled vacancies by 2020. The evolution of automation also means we could soon have 15 to 20 different jobs in a lifetime. We at Real Economy trotted off to the Brussels Economic Forum, where the debate was whether automation will lead to major productivity growth. But the real question I wanted to ask, would people be better off? Are we going to see wages get pushed down further like we saw in Germany when we introduced all of the automation?
If you know how a technology is set up, you know pretty much whether the goodies will go upstairs or down to the people. For example, the first and second industrial revolution infrastructures in the 19th and 20th century, they were designed, the actual technology was designed to be centralized, top down, and you had to vertically scale it. In order to get returns to your stockholders, you had to have big global companies. And whether you were in the Soviet Union or in Europe, you had to do it the same way. What's interesting about the third industrial revolution, it's designed to be distributed, not centralized. So you can try to control it and monopolize it. Governments can try to do it, they already are. Some internet companies, Facebook, Twitter, Google, Amazon, they may try to control it, but if you try to control it, you lose the productivity, because you can close it and you don't have the network effect of having everybody engaged together.
But do companies think the same way? I took a trip with Uber to find out. Do you see companies in the digital space starting to increase the wages at the bottom so we close the inequality gap?
I don't think that Uber and apps like Uber are honestly the one controlling the earnings. At the end of the day, we're a platform and people are free to connect to it. However, we do monitor earnings very quickly, and we know that this is one of the things that drivers, for instance, care about most. And that means that there's a pretty healthy competition across different tech companies and services to make it as attractive as it can be for people to join their apps.
But not everyone agrees with that sort of thinking.
Digitalisation is simply like the tram tracks of the future, so it does offer opportunities. But if you look at what's happening now in the convergence of physical companies with the big digital companies, so you have an Amazon, for example, who's buying up food companies, financial services, legal services, you name it, it's already a global department store, then it's becoming too big to touch. So first of all, it treats its workers like robots, and the regulation is not actually cleaning that up.
How do you make sure that places like Africa, places like Asia, the poorer people are not left behind?
What is most important is that governments find their role and use all the tools available to harness technology for the benefit of the majority and not just a few. We need to see governments investing in key areas of technological development as a way to maintain some public control.
We have robots now in manufacturing. We have a gradual introduction of robots in warehouses. We still have almost no robots in retailing, construction, utilities, healthcare, universities. There's a huge part of the economy where robots are just not evident at all. I play a game called Find the Robot in my daily life, and I never see them. In my local drugstore, you can check yourself out in a checkout kiosk with no human being, although there are humans there watching to make sure you don't steal things.
In the past decade, automation in Europe has created a surge in jobs in the scientific, administrative and technical sectors, but contributed to the most job losses in construction and agriculture. In the future, workers like Panos, Natasha or Dieter are most at risk of losing their jobs as their work comprises routine tasks which robots can do more productively. Veronique and Laura's jobs need creativity, expertise, or managing people, social interactions that robots cannot replicate. Their digital and soft skills will also help them access new jobs in healthcare and technology, which are expected to surge, or the 8 to 9% of new jobs by 2030 that don't even exist today. So here's the billion-euro question.
What needs to change in terms of European regulation and business models to create the jobs for the future?
Two important changes that I think need to happen for the future of work. I think portability of social benefits. We need to move to a world where benefits are tied to the employer, to a world where they are tied to the individuals, which means that if I decide to drive a bit on Uber and then do something else on another platform and then maybe have a part-time job, I'm still able to accumulate all those benefits and keep them with me as I kind of change course in my work life. The second important aspect is lifelong learning and figuring out ways for all of those people using that like Uber to actually be prepared for the next jobs and for wherever technology is taking us.
Oh, right, sorry, I'm mixing up. The kids that are going to school today or going to university today, they should definitely look at science jobs. They should look at learning how to code, learning how to build the new products in the future that automate some of these jobs that we have today and that are not necessarily creating a huge amount of value.
So how do we translate what we should do to what has to be done?
What we need is a new social contract. Some of the elements of the social contract have simply been diluted and need to be reaffirmed, so a minimum living wage or a fair contract price, social protection guarantees, and of course the right to bargain collectively. We are creating a society that is, back to the future. I mean, nobody wants their children and grandchildren to work in the conditions of the Industrial Revolution, and yet in many cases our current supply chains, the new jobs across digital platforms, this is in fact the reality.
It will very much depend on the policies we implement. In order to twist it in the right way, the policies have to be in place in order to allow a smooth transition from, let's say, declining jobs and rising opportunities. I think on education, training, retraining, lifelong learning, reform of product and services markets, not only labor markets, is absolutely key.
Technologies are never neutral, and technological infrastructures through history are never neutral. They come with a price. And this takes us to a new form of globalization, glocalization. With this new infrastructure, communities and cities and regions, they're going to be able already to virtually and physically engage each other all over the world, and all you need is a cell phone.